we should be, man. I don't see it. Oh, wait, hold on. Here we go.
Yeah, I think we're live.
Well, that was kind of weird, right?
Mm-hmm.
Huh. All right. You have this blank stare from me looking at it, not knowing what's going on. That took quite a bit of time. But anyway, I'll let Josh tell me what happened there. He just said we're live. I see it, but I guess we missed all of the beginning. Anyway, in case that was the instance and we didn't go live until now, which it sure seems like we were live on Restream, but who knows? Dave Lockwood, Manny Lawrence, the NFL Strategy Show, Monday edition, recapping everything from the previous week, the good, bad, and the ugly. Mostly just bad and ugly this week, Manny. And I mentioned it again. I don't think we were live for some odd reason, but the reason I love bringing you on for the Monday show, simply put, is because no one breaks down slates and studies the lineups better than you do. What type of studying needs to be done after week 2?
Yeah, this is unlike any other week because I don't think we've ever had a week like this ever in DFS NFL. And it's crazy to say, but I saw the tweets coming out yesterday about defenses. Should we play with defenses? Should defenses be included? We already took out kickers. I don't know why defenses were not included in that update, right? Just take them all out altogether. The matter of fact is there were a few injuries, notable injuries, right, to key players that were heavily owned on the slate yesterday. For myself, for the field, for everything, Big Ben, James Conner, Drew Brees was huge because Michael Thomas and Kamara were pretty much invisible yesterday, nowhere to be found. But that wasn't even the biggest story. And even if you had those guys, there was still a way you could have backdoored the slate, right, and at least got something back. I zeroed out completely. I didn't get $1 back from my investment on either site I played in. And that was because the Patriots were the second highest scoring player / defense on the entire slate. That has never happened before. Never.
And why don't you tell us who the highest was?
Right. So Demarcus Robinson, chalk Demarcus Robinson. Like he was on no one's radar outside of being a super, super contrarian play. I think closer to 1%, 2%, whatever it was. He got 38. The Patriots as a defense got 37. Why that's so significant is because if you played the Patriots, you automatically, at a minimum, had a 25-point head start on everyone else. They outscored the next best defense by 25 fantasy points. So it wasn't really the injuries. The injuries added, insult to injury, no pun intended, but it was really the defense that ruined the slate. And anytime that happens, no matter how good your lineup is, you can't be 25, 26, 27, 28. Most of the field, by the way, was almost 30 points behind the Patriots, which is that's ridiculous when you think about it. So it was just a disaster of a slate altogether.
It certainly was. For anyone watching on Twitch or Periscope, and you did catch the first few minutes of that, super weird because YouTube literally just didn't play it, but we're here now. And the show's sponsored by Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports, where for me, free money was not free money yesterday. But they continue to run monster NFL contests. And the $1 million baller that we're getting every single week, or I would at least assume we're going to get it again this week, is maybe we're not. Are we getting it again this week? I don't know, but they got a ton of no management fee contests, which means all the money that gets put into it goes right back out to the user. It looks like the 500K baller this week. So, but hold on, $10 to enter. So $10 to enter, 500K, 150 max. And then the first place in this one is a very respectable 50 grand. You know what this is like, Manny? It's actually like the DraftKings slant, which everybody really loves. 50K to first, 30 to second, 20 to third, 10 to fourth. That's a really nice payout structure at the top.
Yeah, I actually love those payout structures. And now that Florida's, able to play in these, I absolutely love it, right? The only thing is me playing, so many different sites now, it's hurry up with your CSVs, Yahoo. I really need these things. Right? I think they're on it. I think they're really close. I think they mentioned that they were close to releasing that. So when that comes out, full throttle Yahoo too. But I love the payout structure. I love the price points. I absolutely love it all. And listen, those first 2 weeks where they did their $1 million baller was, you couldn't ask for more from a site trying to make a statement. So yeah, when you see those things, really encouraging. Even though they came down to 500, every site comes down, right?
Yeah.
So that's not there's nothing wrong with what they're doing now. I love these tournaments, and as they continue to progress and continue to innovate, it's only going to get better. So pretty cool from Yahoo.
And if you go to awesemo.com, AWESEMO.com, click on the MLB tab, you'll see the Spotlight Hitters article. It's already posted. It's entirely free. Click on that, and the link to sign up at Yahoo is through us. It's right at the top of the article. You get $30 in Yahoo Sports Rewards points when you sign up and deposit. It's as good as cash. You can use that on the site to play, win, and withdraw money. So yeah, use it through the Spotlight Hitters article, right on the landing page for MLB. You'll see the link at the top. Sign up to us. Get your $30 in Yahoo Sports Rewards points and get in some of this Week 3 action. That's Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports, sponsor of the Deeper Dive, and of course the Strategy Show, because this is not the Deeper Dive. Mm-hmm. All right, so Manny, let's just get started. Some of the biggest factors here, and I had 33% Tyreek Hill last week. I think I had 30-some% Ben Roethlisberger. You had 35, I believe.
It had about 30%. Yes, 30%. Yeah.
I think 50+% Juju Smith-Schuster.
I had 35% Juju Smith-Schuster.
There you go. How much Watkins?
Watkins, I had 27.
Okay. I had a lot.
I mean, I'll go through the injuries. James Conner, I had 35 also.
That's right. That's a ton of. So you went for leverage there with Conner.
For sure. That's probably not the worst one. The Drew Brees injury, which obviously wasn't an injury to Kamara or Michael Thomas, but Kamara was.
It affects them greatly.
Did he even get 10? I don't even think he got 10 fantasy points. Ridiculous. I had 60% Alvin Kamara.
Oh, God.
So, and then 30% Michael Thomas. It was a bloodbath yesterday, man. It was a bloodbath. It was horrible. Horrible.
Yeah. And hey, by the way, anyone who did well, congratulations.
Sure. Yeah.
Certainly happy that you managed to pull this one out. What makes it difficult is you can't predict injuries.
No,
right? You can't predict injuries. But let me tell you, and I mentioned this on Awesemo radio yesterday. It is Sirius 210 XM87. We're on the weekends, 5 o'clock p.m. Eastern, Saturday, 7 to 9 on Sunday, recapping all the day's action and doing some live breaking updates and live coverage as well. But the big thing here is, so we get word after the game, right, that the Steelers were worried about Roethlisberger, some players in the locker room, but they knew that he was dealing with some elbow inflammation all week long, and we didn't have any clue of that until we saw him leave this game on non-contact throw. I wouldn't have touched Roethlisberger yesterday.
Yeah, and I mean, if it was that bad, I mean, he wasn't even making crazy throws or anything. He was throwing 5 yards to Vance McDonald every play, threw a couple to Switzer, and then all of a sudden his elbow's hurting. I mean, that's not just elbow discomfort or whatever. Like, you got something seriously wrong if you can't throw 5 yards, right? Like, I don't know. He tried. I don't even think he could get it to Juju on the outside, which is why halfway through that second quarter, Juju still wasn't nowhere to be found. Wasn't even on the scoreboard with a target. Like, something was clearly wrong with Big Ben yesterday. Not a single word came out of Pittsburgh saying anything was going on. So that's frustrating because you want the transparency, right? Like, if I saw that, I would have also bumped him down a little bit. He was my highest owned quarterback, and Juju and Connor were some of my highest owned players overall. So it was frustrating. Like, I told you yesterday, I texted you yesterday. I'm like, dude, I hope that we get all the bad in one day. Like, if don't spread this out over 3 weeks, where next week you're going to give me another injury, and then you'll give me the third injury in week 4 or whatever. Just give it all to me in 1 week. I'll lose all of it right now. And then let's get some run good the next 2 weeks. I mean, that's the mindset we got to have. I don't know. We can't, it's really tough to just sit here. Injury. Defense goes ham. Like, whatever. It was a very frustrating day yesterday.
You're absolutely right. And, I scrolled through the top 100 people, the top 100 placing in the Millie Maker.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen one of those names before. Not joking. I don't think I've ever seen one of the names before.
No, and you won't, right? I mean, you had to play Patriots defense number 1.
Right.
There's no way you couldn't play them and be up there.
Correct.
It's just not possible.
Zero chance.
So it's only the Patriots guys up there. So how many of your lineups were Patriots number 1? If you had 3, then you have 3 chances to stay alive in the week. If you didn't, you were hurting pretty bad. And then even just knowing how the lineup should have been built yesterday, a lot of Sharks were still on the Texans, which I thought was a fine play, but you should have differentiated a little more. I still don't even think you would have landed that much on the Patriots. If you did, it should have been very little. And because of it, it would have been tough. Also, Sharks were all over, Mahomes, but Mahomes with Kelsey, Sammy Watkins, maybe some Damian Williams. You definitely were not on Demarcus Robinson or
Kelsey was great, but yeah.
Right, sure. But even if like it was, when you saw Demarcus Robinson go for 172, it took so much away from Watkins. That hurt a lot of Sharks too. And then the Big Ben play, I think Big Ben was the one that kind of went under the radar for the casuals, but was a big Shark play yesterday. He didn't even get 5 fantasy points because of the injury. If you paired him with Juju and Connor, that didn't end well either. It was a really, really bad night or bad day yesterday for the Sharks. Yeah.
I'm going to tell you something crazy, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
The guy that came in first place in the Millie Maker, and the guy that came in second place, outside of the Patriots defense, outside of the Patriots defense, the only player they had in common was Derrick Henry.
And he didn't do anything. What?
He had 17. Hear me out. The only player outside of defense that they had in common was Derrick Henry. They had entirely different lineups outside of their defense and Derrick Henry. What I'm saying is, it just shows you the type of low-owned plays that needed to be in lineups, and it didn't have to be the same one. Listen to this lineup that won the Millie Maker on DraftKings, and then we'll go to Yahoo and take a look at that winning lineup as well.
Yep.
Patrick Mahomes, Ezekiel Elliott, Derrick Henry, John Brown. I liked John Brown.
But he didn't do much either.
No, he had 14. Demarcus Robinson, Emmanuel Sanders, Travis Kelce, Preston Williams.
He didn't do anything either.
And the Patriots. Yeah, Preston Williams had 10 points and played he ran, I think, 10 routes in week 1. I mean, ridiculous.
Can you imagine winning a milli off that lineup?
Off that lineup? Dude, if I looked at that and I played it and I had him in a head-to-head, I'd be like, oh, man.
And for real.
Scoop everything.
Even in hindsight, I'll be like, yo, really, that lineup still sucks. How did you win a milli? Preston Wilson, Derrick Henry, and the other one that scored 14 or what? How?
And he didn't run it back from anyone from the Raiders, which, I mean, is fine, but you've got 3 Chiefs players in there. You have to. Here's the amazing thing. Demarcus Robinson, ownership, 0.6%.
Yeah.
Manny Sanders, 1.8%. Preston Williams, 0.6%. Pointing this out because this is really as anomalous as it comes. Getting some low-owned guys at times, a lot of times you'll see a lineup win with a 1% guy, right?
Sure.
But 3 of them?
That's a little bit too much. And guys, I don't know about you, but guys, in my opinion, that really, even in hindsight, I'll say didn't have that much upside. What are you getting from Preston Wilson? What are you getting really from Demarcus Robinson? I guess because he's on that offense, so it worked out yesterday. But I don't even want to I don't want to sit here hindsighting because all this is going to do is next week we're going to put all these Demarcus Robinsons, Mecole Hardmans. We're going to put John Ross. We're going to put all these cats all as as probably our favorite plays of the week. I wouldn't even be surprised if some of these guys that had these big games are chalk next week when in reality that probably shouldn't be the case. That probably shouldn't be the case. But we've seen some really, I'd say, outlier performances week 1 and 2 to the point that, the whole what have you done for me lately? We talk about it all the time. I feel in week 3, it might get ugly with what is chalk and what is not chalk to the point where, man, just play normal people and you might win easily week 3. I don't know.
No, absolutely. And if you were in the top 5, you had either Demarcus Robinson or John Ross, who had a garbage time touchdown for 68 yards.
That's annoying. I could not believe that. I saw it and I'm like, wait, that also put him over the 100. We said it yesterday on Sirius. How? There were 50 seconds left. The game was long over. Stuff like that can get pretty frustrating.
But like you said, and another important point, which is why with defense it can be tilting because a defense can allow no points and have less fantasy points than a defense that allows 20 and has a pick 6.
Yep.
If you didn't have the Patriots defense, you had zero shot at anything significant. I had some, but I didn't have Dalvin Cook. Um, DJ Shark was in the second best lineup on the Millie Maker. John Ross, Derrick Henry, Mark Andrews, Antonio Brown. These are the type of names that won it yesterday. So let's do this.
Yeah.
Among these players I've talked about, Robinson, Sanders, Preston Williams, Ezekiel Elliott, Dalvin Cook, DJ Shark, John Ross, Mark Andrews, I think was fine. But of these guys that were in all of the top lineups, which of them would you look back on and be like, I definitely play them if I could run this back?
Oh, that's a tough question. I'd really just have a little bit more Kelsey than I would have had, right?
I had 65% and still.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't have nearly as much, but I wanted to. The thing was, there were so many value tight ends that were kind of skewing everything, right? We talked about it before the slate. I also talked about it with Chris on this same show on Friday, where, man, there's so many of them, and they're all 3K, right? And the thing for me was, most of them are rookies, to the point where, how am I supposed to project a rookie with a one-game sample size when the one game is 28 fantasy points?
Right.
Like, I mean, that's obviously not sustainable. He's obviously not going to continue getting that many targets. Talking about Hawkinson, talking about Darren Waller, talking about, and yeah, they're great players, but let's be real. Like, the other thing too, like, does Mark Andrews continue doing this? Because I've seen 2 games from Mark Andrews now where
monster games.
It's ridiculous. So they're going to if they continue being 3K and 4K, I think we might see a trend for maybe the next couple weeks where double tight end will continue to be a thing, and it might be working if it stays like this, because all these guys are posting 100-yard games like if it's nothing, when I honestly think it might be, now a 2-week outlier for some of these guys that I don't feel should be in lineups that way. So I don't know. It's an interesting start to the season. There are some guys where I just have a hard time projecting right now, especially the rookies that are having big games. What do you do with McCole Hardman now going forward, right?
Yeah.
Terry McLaurin scored barely at the end too. I think it was like a 5-yard touchdown or something when he was pretty much done the whole game on a little fade route. What do you do with him too? Like, these type of outcomes just skew everything for me. And yeah, it's going to be a real big challenge. I'd say I wish I had more Kelsey. I knew he was a great play, but that tight end pool just kind of skewed everything for me, and it didn't let me get as much as I wanted.
Right. Hey, check this out. Remember we talked about Marcus Brown having like 13 snaps in week 1?
Yeah.
Yesterday, he had 13 targets.
That's stupid, man.
13 targets, 8 receptions for 86 yards. He was in a lot of lineups. Look, I was completely off of Marcus Brown. I'm not going to run him out there if I expect him to get a few targets and hopefully break off a deep ball. But he had 8 for 86 on 13 targets. The winning lineup in the Yahoo $1 Million Baller is Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, and this is crazy. How is Derrick Henry in all of these winning lineups? What am I missing?
I don't understand.
Yeah, I honestly don't know what I'm missing here. Maybe he just fit better, but I guess that's it. I mean, Todd Gurley was like $18 on Yahoo. Dalvin Cook, John Ross, Larry Fitzgerald, Marcus Brown, Mark Andrews, Calvin Ridley, and the Patriots. So let me at least give some props to this guy, okay?
Sure.
He ran a game stack here, right? Like he ran a Jackson, Brown, Andrews stack with Fitz on the coming back, but his one-offs were Dalvin Cook, who, God, he looks really good so far.
He looks incredible, yeah.
Yeah, Derrick Henry and Calvin Ridley with, of course, the Patriots defense. John Ross, whatever. Derrick Henry, I don't necessarily understand that. I guess he was just trying to be different. But at least, he had some rhyme or reason to this lineup with the core of it. But he had every single player outside of Jackson and every single player, including the Patriots defense outside of Jackson, was below 8% ownership.
You want to know why some of these, and I can't stress this enough, why people that are going to study this and try to take something away from it, do it with a grain of salt, because this probably will never happen again. Out of the top 200 placings, taken any tournament, I've done a couple tournaments now. I've only seen at most 2 entries in the top 200 of any single contest that had no Patriots. Only 2 lineups. Amazing. I mean, it was such an outlier, and it's only because it's a defense, right? It's only because it's a defense. You cannot have a defense be the top scoring thing on your line.
You said they were the second highest scoring anything on this slate.
Anything on the slate by 1 point, and then obviously they destroyed every other defense by more than 20. I think it was 25, the second best defense.
Has that? I mean, I can't remember the last time that a defense.
I don't think that has ever happened. They had 7 sacks with obviously the pick sixes in
4
there,
4 interceptions and 2
4 interceptions. I mean, it's ridiculous. So
and no points allowed.
Anytime that happens, you can literally play the Patriots, and you could even play guys that won't even get you 15 fantasy points in your lineup, and you have a legit shot to win the whole thing. The Millionaire Maker guy had John Brown and Preston Wilson. Preston Wilson had 10 fantasy points.
Right.
The $1 million ball, the $1 million baller, guys that should probably never be in your lineup. Doesn't matter if you missed, because you had the Patriots. They scored for, like, if you're accounting for those for those outcomes, they scored equivalent to almost 3 different players.
Yeah,
combined. So I mean, it was horrible. I went through 250 entries. There's 2 guys with no Patriots. I mean, it's really tough to even make it up there, and that's that they had perfect lineups almost.
Exactly. Brad Talby on YouTube.
Yeah, there's no way you're going to overcome that. If you go into the thousands and thousands of lineups, it's going to be 95% Patriots in there, and that's never happened before in DFS.
Brad Talby in YouTube chat says the reason Henry is in the winning lineup is because he's not Kamara. I mean, you're not wrong in that sense, but it wasn't apples to apples with their salaries, though.
Right.
Like, I mean, unless I don't remember, and Henry was just wild. No, he was 28.
Yeah,
God,
or
that's
you
even
could say
expensive for him, though.
Yeah, that's expensive. I mean, again, you didn't really even need anything. You didn't need anything you just needed points. Can you get me something? Because there were guys getting you almost like Kamara getting you an 8 was the equivalent of him getting a 0 at that price tag. I mean, you lost big time. And then on top of that, you didn't have Patriots. Forget it. So Henry, Zeke, even with 23 at 8-7 isn't the best, but it definitely isn't the worst. I'd even say the whole Preston Williams thing. 10 might be even great on this slate with how bad it was. At least you have points there. There were some lineups where I had 0 points. By the way, I don't know who else in here played Ted Ginn. I don't even think I don't know if he played. I don't know if I have no idea. I have no clue. That he had 0 targets. I don't even know if he got on the field. Don't know if he put on his jersey. And I had about 15-20% of him. No Amazing. Clue where that guy was yesterday.
So I didn't fade him. I had 14%, Josh Jacobs. I said to you on Saturday on Sirius that I was very worried about that game script, that it was going to flip and you weren't going to see the same amount of work from Josh Jacobs, right? And I also pointed out, though, that Jalen Richard was not guaranteed to just go out there and get a lot of work, right? They're not mutually exclusive. Like Jacobs getting less work does not necessarily mean that Jalen Richard is going to get the work. And I think that was evidenced yesterday, Manny. Jacobs came 1 yard shy of that 100 yards too, which on bonus sites is a killer for anyone that loaded up on him. But he only had 12 carries, and one of them went for 50-plus yards. Jalen Richard had 3 targets, 2 receptions for 2 yards, and Josh Jacobs didn't see a single target in the passing game. So I think what we're seeing is the Raiders and Derek Carr looked a lot like the Raiders and Derek Carr yesterday. I'm still enthusiastic about Terrell Williams and Darren Waller, assuming their prices don't go through the roof. Because I look at both of these guys and say, they're going to need to throw to someone. They're still going to need to get the ball out. And Darren Waller, to me, who was tied for the team lead in targets with actually Renfro had 8, but 7 targets, him and Terrell Williams. Waller led the team in receptions and yards with 6 for 63. Not a superb performance, but now he's gone 2 games where he hasn't found the end zone, but he's still like Darren Waller was not the reason you lost yesterday. Granted, Mark Andrews, I understand that, and Kelsey being in that tight end spot, but it's not like Darren Waller at 3,300 didn't have, was giving you a 2. He's got 133 yards and 13 receptions through 2 games. If he starts finding the end zone, you're going to feel good about it. But what do you make of this Oakland team after what we saw yesterday?
Yeah, it was, I wouldn't say it was predictable what was going to happen, right? We talked about it saying there was no way they were going to be with the lead and run Jacobs that many times, right? There was no way they could just pass all over a secondary. I thought they would have to play catch up. So I thought they would score a little more than what they scored yesterday. That's for sure. Outside of that first quarter touchdown, they didn't do anything really. But it was this. You couldn't play. And the whole thing going into the week was, I love Mahomes, Watkins, Kelsey, Damian Williams, maybe. I also love Carr to Tyrell Williams, Darren Waller, and I love Josh Jacobs in the backfield. I clearly said, I mean, if you think this game's going to finish 100-99, then yeah, you play all of them together. I don't know how that's even possible, but because to win, let's say a millionaire maker, you want to win the $1 million baller on Yahoo, you got to have all these guys score at least 25, right? Unless you have a 37-point defense. You need them to score 25. How can they all score 25 in the same game? I mean, unless this game has the fastest pace ever known in football's history, or there's just no defense. They're playing with one less guy on I don't even know how that would happen, right? And if you're telling me Josh Jacobs, most of his, I'd say 99% of his production is going to come on the ground, not via the pass game, then we have a real issue. So for me, it was you couldn't really play them all together. They're gonna cannibalize each other in one way or another, especially Josh Jacobs being purely a runner now. Even though he does run a significant amount of routes, he's just never targeted. For me, it was you got to sacrifice somewhere. I sacrificed Josh Jacobs, went to some Tyrell, had some Waller. I wish the games were a little bit bigger for being that much chalk, and it was one of those things where on top of all of that, the price was so cheap. They were all so cheap. It was so hard not to get them everywhere. Right. So it was tough going into the slate. I mentioned I thought it was one of the hardest slates we had to build lineups for because of the Raiders and their price tags. That happened only because they played on Monday night. Now we get them a full week. Hopefully those prices normalize just a little bit and we don't have the same thing in week 3.
Yeah, no question. Travis Petty in YouTube chat, I'm assuming it's your boy Petty Theft.
Yeah.
Said Oakland is going to run first and foremost until they're getting blitzed. I don't think you need to have pass catchers. Look, the first part of that I totally agree with. They're going to do that. But there was very little way, and sure, I guess if you want to run the probabilities that it was competitive, sure. But you look at Mahomes and say he threw for 278 yards and 4 touchdowns in the second quarter.
That's insane.
But outside of that, the first, third, and fourth quarter, he was quiet. But he's still so good that there was very little way that this game stayed competitive for long. So it's clearly 2 ways of looking at it. One is that Jacobs is still involved and they run it as much as they can, or the Chiefs are just too good of a football team. Mahomes is too good that eventually it's going to get out of control. And what's really remarkable about all of this is, you pointed it out yesterday, you didn't need Tyreek Hill. You didn't need Sammy Watkins, right?
Nope.
Like, you didn't need Damian Williams, who had 8 yards on 7 carries. You did it with Demarcus Robinson, Mecole Hardman, and of course Travis Kelsey. But the highest scoring player on the slate was, to start the season, the number 4 option in the passing game for the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah, it's insane. I think it's just perfect. It's a perfect offensive playbook. I think Andy Reid is a genius. The spots he just puts everyone in, regardless of who you are. You could be Demarcus Robinson. You could probably have a 200-yard game in a professional NFL game. Like, it's insane.
He's just the best quarterback out there, man.
Yeah. Oh, by far. It also helps that they have one of the best coaches, at least offensive coaches in the league too. It's such a deathly duo, right? Like, you see them and they make it look so easy every single time. They make it look so easy. They have speed at all positions. They spread out everyone. They stretch the field, better than anyone else in the league. And man, it doesn't matter if it was the Raiders. It doesn't matter if it was the Patriots yesterday. They were going to put up 40 points anyway. Like, and that's the type of team they are. It's just, can you hang with them? Can you score with them? You're definitely not going to stop them when you're on defense. That's for sure. So if you were one of the lucky few that had the 0.6% owned Demarcus Robinson, send some cash my way or something, dude. I'm hurting over here, man. Someone messaged me earlier. They have a tip jar. They're out on the street with a tip jar. Me too, buddy. I'm right here. I'm on the other side of the street. I'm here with a tip jar. Just help me out a little bit, man.
Yeah, you can hear Manny shaking the change from miles away. Come get your boy.
Yeah.
Start a new segment here. I just thought of it, but I want to do it because it's the way I feel. Called That Pisses Me Off. How about that, Manny? And I'm going to tell you what pisses me off. You already know what it is. Well, there's so much. Like, it would take till midnight.
I have a long list, Santa.
Well, yeah, no. What pisses me off the most and just had me infuriated yesterday, Devin Singletary's usage.
Oh, that's another one.
Right, and here's why I say this. Frank Gore is ancient, okay? He is ancient. To get him in close, you got to take one of those fossil dusters and hit every part of his body just to get him prepped. All right? So what bothers me isn't that Devin Singletary doesn't get a ton of work. What drives me crazy is, let me just tell you what his carries looked like. In week 1, 20 yards, 23, 12, and 15. Those are the 4 carries he had. He broke off 2 20s and 2 10+. Yesterday, 14-yard touchdown, his second carry of the game. Then he had a 3-yard rush, then 16 for a first down, of course, then 20 for another first down, and then a 4-yard rush. So he's had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He's had 10 carries on the season. 7 of them have gone for 10+ yards, right? Now, let's compare this to Frank Gore, why don't we?
Sure.
Let's compare this to Frank.
his what were we saying yesterday? He's played like 1,000 years in the league at 3.5 yards per carry. Hall of Famer.
Yeah, he said you just play 87 years, you'll make it into the Hall.
Yeah, you'll make it into the Hall of Fame. Like, it's an honest question. You think he'll make it? I don't know, dude.
I don't know. Look, I'm sure another team will be willing. Next year, the Giants are going to bring him on and just give Barkley 7 carries a game so Frank Gore can average 2.8 yards per carry. This shit is crazy. But how many 10+ yard runs does Frank Gore have this season? I'll give you one guess.
No. 3.
0.
You can't
0.
even make this up, dude.
Absolutely nothing. Yet he gets the ball every time, man. He's got like 88 yards on 30 carries. That's what pisses me off. And I think, look, I went into this and I told anybody, I went into this knowing that there was legitimate risk with Devin Singletary's workload. Okay. Like, I'm not pretending that I was expecting him to get 20 carries. Of course not. But what bothers me the most, and he did get injured, he tweaked his hammy, but that was at the very end of the game. What pisses me off the most is that you're giving the ball to a guy who has been downright and entirely ineffective through the first 2 games. But like you said, they won both games, so now they're just going to keep doing it.
They're going to keep doing it. They're going to start off the game with 3 straight carries to Frank Gore next week, only because, they're 2-0 now, and they're the Bills. We didn't expect to be 2-0. Let's not change a damn thing, right?
All right, so what pisses you off?
Yeah, for me, it's I cannot stand – and listen, I know garbage time is a thing, right? I know that's normal. I know, Blake Bortles made his short career off garbage time. Jameis Winston, to an extent, is a thing because of garbage time. I understand this, but I cannot stand, terrible garbage time to the point where you have 50 yards and with 40 seconds left in the game, you bust out a 60-yard touchdown. I cannot stand 50 yards receiving for a 10%, 12%, whatever it was, Terry McLaurin, and you get a 2-yard touchdown to bail you out because that's significant in a large field tournament. I also cannot fathom, 38 yards receiving the whole game, but Vance McDonald scores 2 touchdowns off 2 3-yard passes. It frustrates me when you did nothing the entire game, but steal my touchdowns at the very end. And on top of that, you gave another Bobo who rostered you, the other 10%, you gave them outs that, they clearly didn't need when you have 38 yards receiving the whole game, but you have 2 touchdowns. That frustrates me. I cannot stand. It's part of the game. I get it. But my goodness, you want to boil my blood? Score 2 touchdowns on 38 yards and see how mad I'll be.
Has Dante Moncrief been the worst receiver in the league
Oh,
so far?
he needs instant release. Just release him right now. That's unacceptable. That's unacceptable.
He's on a show me contract too. 1 year, $9 million. Prove it.
Yeah. Imagine that. By the way, he finished with no receptions yesterday, clearly.
Yep. No receptions. I think he had one target, right? And that target went through his hands, doinked off his helmet. I felt like I was watching The Little Giants.
It was horrible.
Remember the kid that needed to stick him on his hands?
Oh, yeah.
Right? He learned how to catch from throwing toilet paper rolls down the grocery.
Not even that would help Moncrief.
No. No, you'd need to put it on his helmet.
Yeah, right. Just stick him everywhere. Maybe it'll stick to his chest when it hits. I don't know, man. It's pretty darn bad, man. But the Pittsburgh was a disaster yesterday. Apart from the injuries, right? Big Ben getting injured, then Connor going down. I mean, that was frustrating for me, but then trying to get something out of Juju with a backup quarterback only for, Vance McDonald to steal those touchdowns there at the end. I mean, I'm glad it all happened yesterday, and I hope that's it. Everything comes in threes. Here are the threes. We had a highest scoring defense, so we could count that as number 1. All the injuries in the world, we can count that as number 2. And garbage, the worst garbage time I've ever seen, we call that number 3. All right, let's call it a week, right? And again, just try to take the positives, even though there's probably like 1 or 2, and we'll go into week 3 as best as we can.
Well, there's a number 4 for me personally.
Sure. What's that?
You should know.
Oh, the Eagles. Yeah, oh yeah. And I know that.
Brutal loss, dude.
That was a perfect pass, man.
Perfect. And it would have gone for a touchdown.
He almost didn't even touch it. It went right through his hands. It landed perfectly on the other side of him, and he just, continued rounding, and he went back to the huddle like if nothing happened. You just lost the game. That was a touchdown. There was nobody in front of you.
So what's up then with these injuries now? I mean, Deshaun Jackson goes down in the first quarter. I didn't even see them on the field. Alshon Jeffrey goes down, has his helmet off, doesn't return. Dallas Goedert doesn't get out of warm-ups before being injured. Tim Jernigan on the opposite side broke his foot, but those injuries, I don't see anything on them yet, so we can't really discuss it much.
Yeah. So it's all these injuries are fresh, right? The Drew Brees, we already know he's going to be out 6 weeks. I think I don't know if we have word on Big Ben yet.
I haven't seen any confirmation.
Yeah, and then we don't have anything for Deshaun Jackson or Alshon Jeffrey, but my goodness, man. The injuries didn't stop in the main slate, right, or in the afternoon slate. They kept going into the Sunday night, and it's unfortunate because 2 guys I think we were high on after week 1, or at least I could have performed well in yesterday's showdown. No, man, you have to rely on Nelson Aguilar, which, there you go. That one mistake there at the end cost you the game. Incredible, because I texted you halfway through saying, man, it looks brutal for you guys out here, man. You guys are going through a rough time this Sunday night game to the Falcons out of all people. You turned it around. I thought you were going to win there at the end. And then Nelson Aguilar happened. I think you could have used some Deshaun Jackson or Alshon Jeffrey there at the end. What do you think?
Yeah. Dude, Jackson would never have dropped that pass.
No way. You were running Nelson Aguilar and Mac Hollins.
Amazing, right?
That is one heck of a duo right there, right?
And they should have won.
And you should have won, which is even worse.
It's really insane. So what do you do with the Steelers now? I mean, Ben Roethlisberger goes down. I honestly, I think we might disagree a little on this. I didn't think Mason Rudolph looked that bad. He could have been better for sure, but with the way that Ben was playing before the injury, I'm not sure it would have made a difference anyway. Finished 12 for 19, 112 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception, which the interception was not his fault. That interception was entirely on Dante Moncrief. Perfectly thrown ball. If Roethlisberger's out, what does that do for Juju's value? And I mean, you could talk about Vance and everyone, but really Juju. And do we have any updates on James Conner?
Not that I've seen. So I haven't seen any updates on anyone, either Big Ben or James Conner. So as soon as I see it, I'll try to mention it. But going forward, I mean, okay, so what have you really had from Juju? Nothing, right? You haven't had anything from Juju so far. You really haven't had anything from James Conner outside of, goal line touchdowns, which he barely got in yesterday. I think you might be right here. He didn't look that bad, right? And the interception wasn't his fault. And then what we've got him from Big Ben the first couple of weeks, I mean, we're not missing out on anything. Like, he hasn't targeted Juju till late in the second quarter in both games. And if that's going to be the case, I almost want someone else in there, right? To at least look his way, at least try. I don't care if it's because I get it. It was Stephon Gilmore the first week, and such good defense or whatever. But like, what was your excuse yesterday? I don't get it. Just try.
Mason Rudolph's $4,800 on DraftKings against this San Francisco.
It's going to be tough because there's two guys, right? Teddy Bridgewater too. That's also going to be really cheap. What do you do? And they both have guys you can pair them with, which makes it even that much more difficult. Juju, Connor, MT, and Kamara, right? So I already smell some $4,800 backup quarterback chalk next week, which is already scary in its own.
Horrifying.
But it is what it is, right?
Yeah, and the thing is, like, Bridgewater faces Seattle. Who the hell knows if it's the Seattle defense that allowed a career-high 418 passing yards to Dalton, right? Or if it's the defense that allowed, 180 combined passing yards to Mason Rudolph and Ben Roethlisberger. I think it's somewhere in the middle. And it's a matter of whether you think, Teddy Bridgewater having a full week of practice with the first team is going to be enough to get him there. I don't know what to think. And with Mason Rudolph, San Francisco defensively has looked pretty solid, man. They held Cincinnati to 10 points. It was 17 technically, but we all saw the John Ross touchdown. It was a gimme. Right. And didn't Jameis Winston throw 2 pick sixes in week 1?
Yeah, man. I'm not ready to deem them great yet, but they've played great so far. And what I think they're 2-0 now, right? So that's impressive. Yeah, I'm not going to say it's going to be easy at all. It's more a price thing. I hate having those price issues or point per dollar issues on anyone, regardless of the position, but it's going to be a tough choice with 2 backup quarterbacks, as of now in line to start week 3. Mason Rudolph is just one of those guys.
All right. So,
Big Ben out for season. Is that true?
Well, here's the Steelers. Ian Rappaport at Rap Sheet reports the Steelers announced that Ben Roethlisberger had an MRI on his right elbow and will need surgery this week. He is out for the season. That was tweeted 37 seconds ago. Ben Roethlisberger done for the season, Manny. A huge hit to the Steelers. But let me tell you this. I don't know if it's as bad as everyone thinks. Now, the big question is, did Ben look so bad over the first 2 weeks because he was dealing with this the entire time and it was kept under wraps? That could be very possible.
Yeah, I think so.
So I wouldn't want a banged up Roethlisberger playing anyway. And isn't it reasonable to assume that they drafted Rudolph to be the successor here?
Very well could be. I mean, when you think about it, look at the games we just saw from Big Ben, right? He could not get it downfield. He could not. He was throwing 5-yard passes to Switzer and McDonald because he could not throw it more than 10 yards. And I mean, I would love to have known this before, right? For my own sake, but if you're a Pittsburgh fan, if you're Pittsburgh staff, what were you doing, right? If it was really that bad, what were you doing?
Right.
Why would you put that in jeopardy like that? He looked so bad that I kept looking at the game and I'm like, something's just not right here. Something's not right here. Like, I've never seen Pittsburgh this bad. I've never seen Big Ben this bad. He was literally flicking it 5 yards to Switzer every time. He was down with 3 and outing. He wasn't even getting mad, and he would just walk over to the sidelines. That's not Pittsburgh.
No.
Does not make any sense.
No, and it's not Ben Roethlisberger. I don't know if the Juju news here, or if the news is that big of a deal, only because I think Roethlisberger looked terrible anyway. So I don't want him playing hurt. If it was already a healthy Roethlisberger and he got injured, then that's an entirely different story. But how much drop off can you really see from what we had in weeks 1 and week 2? You can't.
Yeah. So here's my thing. We're not getting anything less than we've gotten in week 1 or 2. That was the all-time low, I think, for everyone on that team. The only thing we can fear here is, does it stay consistent? And that's what you'd hate if you're a Juju owner, right?
No question.
Does this continue to look like this because it's Mason Rudolph? Or does it get a little bit better? I'd love to think it can only get better from here because it only can. They've been awful the first 2 weeks. So if you're a Juju owner, first of all, you can't sell high. No one's going to buy him after these 2 games. You can't sell high on James Conner. And it sucks because you spent a first and second round pick on both of those guys if you're playing season long. So for DFS purposes, I would even like to put them as they got to be cheap for me to play them. It also goes, and we say this all the time, no matter how bad you are, you can't have 0 yards passing in a game, right?
Right.
You can't have 0 rushing yards in a game, and you can't have no touchdowns for multiple weeks. They're going to score, and they're going to have some yardage. I'd like to think Juju and Connor will still be a huge part of that, and they'd stop throwing to James Washington and Dante Moncrief and Switzer and these cats. Give it to your best playmakers and try to win that way. Hopefully Mason Rudolph can do that. But yeah, it's going to be Mason Rudolph the rest of the way. That's pretty scary, man.
Speaking of struggling quarterbacks, how worried should we be about Adam Thielen and Stefan Diggs in Minnesota? Yesterday, I saw that long touchdown from Diggs. I'm like, oh man, I don't have any Stefan Diggs. And then I realized that on 7 targets, he had 1 reception for 49 yards and a touchdown. He finished.
Yeah, I'm not saying anything from last year was a fluke because the guy was insane last year, but I also attribute this again. Going through week 2, it's pretty tough to just make assumptions after 2 weeks.
And it looks like Green Bay's defense is legit.
Correct. So that's what I was getting at. First week, they really didn't even need to pass. Dalvin Cook was running circles around those guys, so they didn't need it. And then the defense was insane the first week. And then week 2, they face a really good defense. And I know we don't associate Green Bay with having a good defense, at least the last few years, but they have a legit defense this year. And, we saw that again yesterday. Outside of a couple, just really good plays from the Vikings yesterday, Dalvin Cook, Stefan Diggs had a really good, long catch yesterday. But outside of that, they couldn't do anything. I think once the schedule starts getting easier for these guys, you'll see them come around just a little bit more. I think it was just 2 games that the game script just didn't go their way, or they just had a really tough matchup like they did yesterday. So I'd hold on. If you could buy low on any one of these guys, if you're talking season long, sure. DFS, I think you got to weather the storm, play it by matchups, price, and hopefully they come out swinging next time out. But really tough matchup yesterday. I think people don't give enough credit to the Green Bay defense.
Yeah, Kirk Cousins completed 43.8% of his passes, which is kind of crazy. And by the way, for a team that was playing from behind as much as they were, we can't ignore this. You might look at Cousins and say, okay, 32 passing attempts. That's really low for a team that was down 21-0 in the first quarter.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like that is not really reflective of what you would expect to see for a team that was playing from behind. So
yeah, do you think it's a statement after that 10 pass attempt game in week 1, and then you come out, you're losing by a ton, and you still don't pass enough?
And you still run the ball?
Yeah,
dude,
for a guy that was top 5 in pass attempts last year, right? So
yeah, it's certainly possible. I don't know the answer to that, but
it's just here, Dalvin Cook. Even if we're losing, just try to run an 80-yarder and get us back into this.
Right.
Luckily, he's able to, but I mean, you can't rely on that.
No, absolutely. Matt Ryan threw 43 times, and they were either tied or basically within 1 possession all game. So I definitely think you should expect Cousins' pass volume to be down. If he's going to throw 32 times in a game where they were playing down 3 scores, what do you expect to see? And by the way, and completes only 43% of his passes.
Right.
What do you expect to see in a close competitive game or a game where they have the lead? I could see this being like a Pete Carroll offense where Russell Wilson throws when he needs to.
Yeah, and that isn't what you want to hear, right? I don't think that's what we want to hear, right? Just run. For fantasy, I just hate run. I cannot stand. First of all, for even watchability, I hate just looking at teams just run the football over and over and over. Second down, bro. Even on third down when it's 3rd and 3, I hate seeing a run. Like, it just frustrates me, and it's especially when there's good receivers on your team, right? It's frustrating. I think it's only 2 weeks, so it's hard to just say definitively what's going on and how to play them going forward. But I don't like what I've seen in the first 2 weeks.
Yeah, no, me neither. By the way, the 2 quarterbacks that you and I drafted in our SiriusXM host league, Andrew Luck, Ben Roethlisberger.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. That's
Fortunately, awesome. I picked up old Matthew Stafford, so We got something. Not much, but we got something, Manny. All right. Biggest takeaways before we head out of here. Everyone can also check your stream out on, is it twitch.tv/mlaura?
That would be it. Yeah. Going live right after this.
I got you, bro. And follow Manny on Twitter at mlaura, myself at Laffy_D, LOUGHY_D. Biggest takeaways from week 2.
Yeah, it's not going to be really from the games per se. It's going to be more DFS wise, and don't overreact. It's impossible for anyone to overreact over this. If you lost, most of the Sharks lost, including myself. I want to say I lost a lot of money yesterday. I felt like I had really good lineups. I felt like the groups are great, the stacks were great, everything was great. Sometimes in sports, it's just not going to go your way no matter what happens. Injuries galore. Defensive outliers, like so many things went into week 2. It's hard to say you played wrong, more like variance took its course in week 2, and really all I could say is don't overreact. Don't even change your process, really, if you trust it that much and if you've researched and put in time to create it. Don't even just throw this one out the window and just try to get at it week 3. It was a really, really tough week for most, week 2, so don't feel bad about yourself.
I'm with you, man. Biggest takeaways for me, some of these injuries were devastating. Ben Roethlisberger done for the year. Drew Brees out, what's looking like it's going to be 6 weeks. That can crush the Saints' playoff hopes. And now with the Eagles, what's going on with Deshaun Jackson and Alshon Jeffrey? What's going on with Dallas Goedert? They ran a lot of 12 personnel. They can't do that if Goddard's out. Just so many different injuries that came up, that popped up yesterday, many of them significant. And, really at this point, I asked you yesterday, how many defenses would you not play against the Miami Dolphins?
I don't think there's any.
I mean, that's insane.
You posted the little duck thing, right? When I was watching the game, so I saw it and I'm like, what on earth am I watching? This doesn't make sense. He threw them in the football and he ducked out of the way with no one around him.
You can't make it up, man. You cannot make it up. So they're in Dallas. They've been outscored 102-10 over their first 2 games. Now my assumption is that we're just going to see, Dak, Zeke, Amari, Gallup, chalk in week 2. And of course, Dallas Cowboys defense. Week 3. There's no question, right?
For sure. And careful with Gallup, by the way. I think I don't know what happened with the knee. He had an MRI. I think was getting an MRI. So again, careful there. But you can play whoever you want on that team, offense or defense. It doesn't matter. Miami's just going to give it up to you as 24/7. They're horrible at every position. They're trying to trade now Minkah Fitzpatrick for another first-round pick. I'm down. Listen, if we're going to go 0-16, let's go 0-16 in style and break, all the worst records we can break.
Yeah.
We have the worst differential ever, and let's keep going. Why not?
Right. No question. And someone asked me on Twitter when I said this is what tanking looks like. They're like, but why would the players be doing that? It's not the players. It's the players that the team is putting on the field.
Correct. You're fielding a bad team. That's a horrible team.
Right.
At every position.
You remember the Sixers tanking? They had Henry Sims at center.
Yeah, I mean, look, every team's eventually going to go through something like this, right?
Yeah.
We had our time. Marino was our best player by far. Those years you couldn't touch us. We were a different team, right? We had a season where we've been the best of all time, the perfect season. No one else has ever done it. We're also going to have the reverse of a perfect season. People go through ups and downs, man. People go through ups and downs. It's a tough time being a Miami fan because look at every sport and we're the same way. The Marlins are just as bad right now. And we're going through a huge rebuilding stage. But we have 2 World Series. Like, people are going to go through this. Miami is just a very impatient city. It's very tough to watch, too. So, I don't know. We're trying to weather the storm week by week. But, man, it looks pretty darn bad.
Yeah. Vegas 23 says, how bad must Rosen be to not start him yet on that team? No, you're missing the point, Vegas. They want the worst quarterback out there. So Rosen's probably been pretty decent. For all we know, Rosen's going to be a stud.
Well, Rosen, by the way, came in week 1, threw a pick his first drive. It's not like he's any better.
I'm 100% joking.
And yesterday, he almost rolled his ankle trying to do some shenanigans there. How he stood up, I have no idea. But It doesn't matter who you put. Rosen's equally as bad. Doesn't
Nah,
matter.
you know I'm joking about this. It's all terrible, man. Whichever way they can lose and get that first pick. But there you have it. Hey, before you head out, if you enjoy the show, hit us with a thumbs up, like the video. It really helps support all of us at awesemo.com, and it helps support the channel, help us grow so we can continue to do free videos like this. Strategy Show will be back with you tomorrow. Sal Vetri and myself. Subscribe, hit the notification bell in the meantime, and check Manny's stream out after this. Twitch.tv/mlaura. We'll see you back here tomorrow on the NFL Strategy Show. It's been fun, boys. Let's have some amnesia and work our way into week 3.